Hello, in this video I'm going to play for you the audio of the air traffic control and two aircrafts call outs to one another for the mid-air collision that happened in DC between the Sikorsky Blackhawk military helicopter and the CRJ-700 airliner. And this means that the radio communications worked such that the air traffic controller had communication with both aircraft, but the two aircraft were not communicating. So this video has the audio basically edited together so that you hear both aircraft with the air traffic controller in the same thing. And then the video part of it is a simulation, I suppose, of the radar contacts and the positions of the airplanes along with this audio. Now, as you listen to it, I want you to just pay attention that the CRJ is called Blue Streak 5342 and the helicopter is called Pat 25. So as you listen to it, you're going to hear multiple other aircraft also call out and being given instructions. But these are the two that you want to pay attention to, is Blue Streak 5342 and Pat 25. And while I have a lot of confidence in the accuracy of the audio, the video with the map and the radar blips, that seems to be a simulation. It says simulation in the top right-hand corner. And so I'm not 100% sure that the positions of the aircraft are 100% accurate. Okay, so just with that disclaimer, here we go.
Tower 5342 on Mount Vernon, visual runway 1.
Blue Streak 5342, Washington Tower 1 star 32017, gust 25, can you take runway 33?
Yeah, we can do 33 for Blue Streak 5342.
Blue Streak 5342, that's a Wilson Bridge, change to runway 33, runway 33, clear to land.
Change to runway 33 for land, Blue Streak 5342.
Jet 789, 1 star 32015, gust 25, traffic 2 out, no delay, runway 1 for takeoff.
Clear takeoff, runway 1, no delay.
Washington Tower, American 3130 with you, runway 1.
American 3130, Washington Tower 1 star 31014, gust 25, runway 1 clear to land. Traffic may depart prior to arrival.
Okay, clear to land, runway 1, American 3130.
Jet 789, contact don't park today.
Okay.
American 3130, slow the final.
Slow in American 3130.
Pass 25, traffic just south of Wilson Bridge to CRJ at 1,200 feet, start runway 33.
Scott has a traffic inside request visual separation.
This separation proof. American 1630 Tower, runway 1, lot boy, traffic through outside runway 33, dispatch 16 on final.
Final wait, runway 1.
Blue Streak 5307, keep rolling out to November, ground 47 today. American 1630 1 star 32014, gust 25, traffic 2 mile up base runway 33, no delay, runway 1 clear for immediate takeoff.
Number 1, clear for takeoff, American 1630.
Pass 25, get the CRJ in sight. Pass 25, pass behind the CRJ.
This club has a aircraft inside request visual separation.
This separation.
American 4782 by Baton, Mount Vernon visual.
American 472, Washington Tower 1 star 32017.
Okay, now that you've listened to it, let's analyze that a little bit. First of all, these two flights are on very routine routes. Nothing special about the entire evening, about the call-outs or about the airplanes, about the routes they were taking, anything that happened. Nothing is outside of the realm of possibility on a normal night. The CRJ is set up for landing on runway 01. This 01 means if you just multiply the 1 with 10, you get 10. That is the angle at which this runway is lined up with. It's 10 degrees with respect to magnetic north. And it gets asked to divert to runway 33. Multiply that by 10, you get 330 degrees. That runway lines up with 330 degrees. If this is north, then that's 360 degrees, 350, 40, 30, 330 degrees is about there. And so in order to do that, they were on approach, runway 1, right? In order to do that, they were going to fly to the right, circle around to the right, and intercept the approach path that lines up with runway 33, and then turn final, right? And then they're going to land on that runway. That was what they were going to do. The helicopter is on the opposite side of the airport, and they are on the river because the altitude of the helicopter corridor starts high where they are. And then as they follow the river around the airport, they are going to dip down in altitude, down to 200 feet. And this is where the problem occurred, is that these two aircraft collided. And so we want to, in this video, listen to the air traffic control, comment on that. And I'm not only going to talk about why this happened, but we also want to, I want to give my perception of what could be done to make sure that this never ever happens again. Because certainly this collision was completely avoidable. And it seems that it was a conglomeration of unfortunate circumstances, poor decision making, bad judgment, and pilot error, and perhaps lack of training that led to this tragedy. Okay, so this catastrophe, we don't want to have this happen again. All right, so nothing special about this plane getting diverted to a different runway. Nothing special about that. The only thing that I think we should perhaps mention is that this plane was set up. Now it is going to focus on trying to land on a shorter runway, because runway 33 I think is 5,200 feet or 5,400 feet or something like that, which is a shorter runway for this plane. It's doable, but they're going to be very intensely focused on landing not too early and not too late. They have to make use of the entire runway in order to do a safe landing, because they don't have a long enough runway to do, to make any mistakes there. They have to be on the PAPI. They have to be on the glide slope. They have to land where they're supposed to land and get this plane to slow down fast so that they don't run over the runway. And so why is this important? This is important because runway 33's edge is on the riverbank. And so as they approach, if they come in, at whatever, for 3 degrees or something, and they're going to land, when they get down to the edge of the runway and they're over the river, they're very, very low. Okay? And if they are landing on a short runway, that means that they're not going to be high. They're not going to be high. They're going to be low. They're going to be very low over this river. And that's just the nature of that short runway and this airplane. Now, then a little bit later, the air traffic controller informs the Blackhawk of the CRJ. It gives him the following instructions. It says to the Blackhawk, Pat 25, traffic just south of Whitrow Bridge, a CRJ. It's 1,200 feet, setting up for runway 33. Immediately, the Blackhawk pilot, or the instructor maybe, if there was a female flying, this is a male voice, so it's perhaps it's one of the other crew members, and more likely the instructor that responds, saying traffic in sight, request visual separation. Now, if you look at the radar on this in this simulation, it does seem odd though, because if you look at where these two are, it looks like they are in this configuration. The helicopter had turned slightly north, and it's on the other side of the airport. So even if it was pointing at this direction, it would have to look very carefully to find this airplane in a cluttered space of lights on the ground, building lights, parking lights, all kinds of HID lamps and sharp lights and other traffic. But they also have their back turned towards this plane. So this plane seems to be between 3 o'clock and 5 o'clock, somewhere, with respect to the helicopter. So how is it possible for them to say instantly, yes, we have him in sight, request visual separation? It seems to me, and I could be wrong, that either they had traffic on a screen in front of them so that they could see there's the CRJ, there's the Woodrow Wilson Bridge, there is runway 33, and we are here. Unless they had that, how did they possibly know that they had the aircraft in sight? It's very, very strange, right? So, and even if you have the map in front of you, it might take you 2 seconds just to get your bearings on the map and find that CRJ. I think the response was too fast to give me confidence that the pilot or the crew of this helicopter had that aircraft in sight. And then if you look at, and if they were in this configuration, if that is accurate, then that response was not legitimate. It wasn't, this plane was not giving a legitimate response to the air traffic controller. That is a training problem. Add to this that this airplane is still on the other side of the airport. They're higher, and it would be virtually impossible to find this light. So even if you have it on the map, even if you have the map in front of you, you still have to find the light in the sky, because you have to put it in 3D space in front of you or around you. And I'm not confident that they were able to do that with or without a map of traffic inside the cockpit. All right, so that's the first thing that I want you to notice, that something went wrong in this communication. And at this Blackhawk, I have questions about that call, that they have the aircraft in sight, because it happened too quickly, and they were not in a position to see that light so quickly. Now, let's suppose the helicopter then turns. The helicopter then turns back away from north, and it turns more eastward. And if they have eyes on this plane now, they would see the light moving from left to right. They would see the light moving from left to right. But then the Blackhawk reaches the bend in the river. It's turning towards this plane. This plane also is turning now, has turned, it made its right turn to intercept. And now they are, at some point, they are pointing at one another. Now, when you're flying at night and there's a light that's stationary, it means you're in a collision course with that aircraft. So but that also makes it virtually impossible to see that light if it's among other lights and stars and other things going on, because it's not moving. It's easier to see a moving light, right? If a light is moving because the plane is going this way or this way or this way, you can see that light faster. It catches your vision. But if the light is stationary, you may not be able to see it immediately. You may have to look for it. Also, there are collision avoidance rules that change depending on the orientation of these. If this plane wasn't on approach, I'm mentioning that because it's not clear that this pilot knew at all times that this plane was landing. Okay, so maybe they were thinking about collision avoidance rules, and it was partly confusing them. But in this configuration, this aircraft would have right of way. In this configuration, this one would have right of way. In this configuration, they would have to divert to the right. Right? Were these things going through the pilot's head of the Blackhawk? Were they confused about what was going on? Let's continue on the path and see what happens. So they are in this configuration now, and the Blackhawk turns further south, and this plane turns now to the left to intercept the runway 33. Right, so they are now in this kind of configuration. They were in this configuration. Now they are in this configuration. And if the Blackhawk looks at this plane now, it's going to see a light not moving from right to left anymore, but the one from left to right. And here, the Blackhawk has this plane off of its left, and this plane has the Blackhawk on its right. Let's get to the next call out that the air traffic controller makes, because they are now approaching one another very fast. Right? You can also look at it from this perspective if you want. It's in this configuration. It's in this configuration, and they are approaching one another very, very quickly. Or if we look at it from this perspective, they are approaching one another very, very quickly. And they are flying at each other and closing the gap between one another at about 230 to 250 knots. Now that's very high. That's more than 250 miles an hour that they are approaching one another. That's very, very fast. You can imagine if you are approaching something at 250 miles an hour, you don't have time to think. You don't have time to wonder what you are doing or where you are or where the other thing is. So at this position, the air traffic controller says, Pat 25, do you have the CRJ in sight? Now this assumes that the pilot of the Blackhawk helicopter knows there is a CRJ. That they remember that 3 minutes ago, 2 minutes ago, whatever it is, there was a CRJ that the air traffic controller told them about that was south of the Woodrow Bridge, setting up at 1,200 feet, setting up for runway 33. And that this plane, what its intent was, that it had done this this S-curve, right hand, and then turned left, bank left to intercept the short final for runway 33. This plane, this pilot is expected to know all of that at this point. Just by if I listen to that call, Pat 25, you have the CRJ in sight. Just to put this in context for you and in perspective of why I think this could have confused the pilots of the Blackhawk. First of all, the pilots of the Blackhawk are by now at 200 feet. And they are now focusing on trying to keep this plane from this helicopter from hitting anything. They are flying over bridges. They are flying over telephone or lamp poles. They are flying over power lines or under them, and they must not hit anything. And they are. This is a maneuver that takes a lot of concentration. If you're flying at 80 miles or 100 miles an hour, 200 feet above the ground, and you have to follow the river, this takes intense concentration. You cannot be thinking about where am I? Am I on the map? Where's the other plane? Is the other plane here? We're here. We are. This is a Woodrow Bridge. This is runway 33. Runway 33. You're flying with a joystick. You're trying to keep this plane, this aircraft, from hitting anything on the ground. And we haven't even spoken about the night goggles. The night goggles, removes your ability It impairs your ability to scan the sky and scan your instruments, scan the sky and scan your instruments like us pilots would normally do. It also washes out all the light pollution around them, all the cluttered lighting from the ground and from buildings and so forth, would wash out those goggles. But apparently they were on a training mission, and the pilot was wearing them. If we believe the other Blackhawk pilots and people from that who have spoken out and who've made videos, then they would have worn that, because this was a certification. This was a training flight to certify this one pilot. And there's an instructor on board. So if that is the case, first of all, you cannot expect this plane, this aircraft, this helicopter, to stay within 200 feet of the ground all the time. Because if they're just going to, at 100 miles an hour, 80 knots, they are just moving the stick to get over a bridge, they're going to be over 100 feet over any time, any minute. It takes a second. 100 feet is nothing at that speed. And now the air traffic controller is expecting this pilot to have situational awareness that's amazing. They must know, and they must have kept that CRJ that they had in their 5 o'clock position or 4 o'clock position earlier in sight the whole time. Not only that, they know that that plane has now moved around to a different position, and they are about to land on runway 33. So this pilot also knows where the plane is, what the intent of CRJ is, which light is CRJ, where it is going on the runway, where it is going to the airport with respect to them. All those things they have to know. And this to me is assumption. And we all know the mother, what does assumption do, right? It's the mother of all. Yes. Assumption is the mother of all. You know how to finish that sentence. So that, I think, assumed too much from this crew to say the CRJ. Let's put you in a car. You're driving at 12 o'clock at night, and you're on a freeway, and and there are multiple lights of oncoming traffic in the opposite direction. And I say to you, do you have the BMW in sight? First of all, you're asking me if I'm crazy because all you see are lights. You cannot determine if a light is a BMW or if it's a school bus. You only know that you see lights. Every vehicle has 2 lights, and they're coming for you because the distance between these lights are gradually becoming greater. And as the distance between the lights increase, you can see that that vehicle is getting closer and closer and closer. And you have some depth perception based on the distance of the lights. It's not because of stereoscopic vision anymore. It's too far for that. Your perception of how far a vehicle is based on 2 things. One is the distance of the lights, and then a secondary effect is the reflection of the light off of the ground, of the road. If you can see that, even if it's a motorcycle, you will have some perception of how far the motorcycle is. But if you see 2 lights, you don't know if it's 2 motorcycles or if it's a BMW or a Toyota or a school bus or a truck, what it is. Because most vehicles have lights that are more or less the same distance apart, and that's all you know. So when the air traffic controller says, do you have the CRJ in sight, that's as helpful as asking you if you have the BMW in sight. Okay? It doesn't tell me anything about which lights I'm supposed to look at or what this plane is doing, what its intent is, how high it is. Is it at 2 o'clock, 4 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 10 or 12 o'clock, 6 o'clock? Where is this plane compared to where I am? It doesn't give all that information. I think it assumed too much from this crew. The next instruction is PAT 25, pass behind the CRJ. Okay. This is a perfectly legitimate instruction. Both calls are legitimate. I'm not blaming the air traffic controller. I'm just pointing out what could have caused confusion. Okay, so he says Pat 25 passed behind the CRJ. All right, so let me say, you are in a car, you are traveling at 70 miles an hour at night, you see vehicles in front of you coming towards you, and I tell you, hey, I'm sitting next to you, I say, pass behind the BMW. What are you going to do? You're going to look at me like you're going to look at me like I'm crazy, right? Pass behind the BMW. First of all, I see lights. I don't know where the BMW is. I don't know how to pass behind something that's coming for me. I don't know how to do that. Now, of course, if you think about it, but you have to think about it first, this helicopter is in a corridor 200 feet above the ground, following the river, the bank of the river. It's like it's on a train track, okay? It can go forward, it can stop, and it go backward, but it cannot go left or right or up or down. Down is into the ground, up is 200 feet, is past the altitude limit, and left or right is outside the corridor. So if it says, if the air traffic controller says pass behind the CRJ, it could mean, what it means is, listen, there's a plane landing in front of you. Do not cross. Do not go any further. Slow down. Come to a stop until that plane has landed and it's passed in front of you. Then proceed. But do you see that saying Pat 25 pass behind the CRJ is a very condensed way of saying the same thing. It's a condensed way of saying, hey, Pat 25, slow down. There's a plane landing. Do not go in front of it. Hold your position until it has passed you, and then you can proceed. All of that information is contained in this one sentence. Pat 25, pass behind the CRJ. All of that information. It also tells you what type of aircraft it is. But I think that while this is a very condensed way of saying a lot, it is so condensed that this guy doesn't know what it means. Unless they have trained properly. Unless their flight planning was so comprehensive that they knew along the route. And let's go back to the previous call out. Where's Woodrow Bridge? Where are the landmarks? Where are the runways? Which direction are the runways being used tonight? Where are we going to pass through the approach paths of oncoming aircraft that are landing? Where should we look to expect aircraft that are taking off, and where are we supposed to look to see aircraft that are landing, and where are we supposed to look to see aircraft that are in a holding pattern? Do we have all that information? Because now what happens is this aircraft, for the second time, says traffic in sight, requesting visual separation. They do it twice. They did it earlier, and now they do it twice for the same aircraft. They say, yeah, we have it in sight. Request visual separation immediately. Did they? Did they have it in sight? Was it a legitimate request to say we request visual separation? I don't think so, because they flew into it. They did not hold position before and let the other one pass in front of them. They went right through into the approach path of a landing aircraft. Does it matter at this point? Does it matter that they were at 325 feet, if that is where the accident occurred, 325 plus or minus 25 feet, as the NTSB says? It does, of course. If they were lower, it wouldn't have happened. But in general, they shouldn't be there. They shouldn't be in front of a landing aircraft. They should be horizontally a distance away. They should have held position. There should have been a 500-foot horizontal separation between them. And they should not have been an incursion on the glide slope of a landing aircraft, on the approach path in front of them, that close to the runway. This plane, I don't know at what height this plane is normally when it's landing on runway 33 and it's over the river, above that helicopter corridor. How high is it above the helicopter corridor? My suspicion, just looking at the map, is that this plane is right around 200 feet above the ground. These two paths are intersecting one another there. This aircraft should not have been close to the approach path of that runway when aircraft are landing there. They should have waited for the CRJ to land and then proceeded. So let's talk about what went wrong. I think there's a training problem. I think the aircraft or the air traffic controller made a legitimate calls, but they expected too much from the Blackhawk helicopter crew who did not have proper flight planning, and they didn't have proper training. First of all, it seems they were calling out traffic in sight without having traffic in sight, blindly saying traffic in sight. Just fulfill the procedure. It's just like you're just checking boxes without knowing what you're doing. They were saying, yeah, we have traffic in sight. Give us visual separation. That is the procedure. But did they have traffic in sight? No, they didn't. They didn't have traffic in sight. I'm not confident that if they did have any traffic in sight, that they were looking at the correct light in the sky or on the ground. They were not looking at the right thing. The second call out, close near, almost just before the collision, again, they should not have been in the vicinity. They should have held short. They should have known better where they were on that airport, near that airport. They should have known which runways are being used. They should have known when they were approaching the runway that they were in a very critical danger zone where there are aircraft landing, and they didn't. They just ran into it blindly, despite being told to pass behind another aircraft. I don't think they fully understood the instruction to pass behind the other aircraft. I don't think they remembered the previous call about the CRJ, or that they paid enough attention to it and comprehended where the other plane was and what its intentions were and what it means with respect to their flight path. I don't think they comprehended it. So there's a training issue here and a flight planning issue that needs to be resolved for Blackhawk helicopters flying in busy airspace. That's number one. Number two, the air traffic control tower apparently was understaffed. That should not happen. This is a recipe for disaster. Managing flights in that tower is an intense job that requires a lot of concentration and sanity. You cannot have somebody that's psychologically impaired, but you have to have somebody who is bright and who is on top of things and who is well rested and not overworked. How long can a human being stay focused on something that takes a lot of concentration? Only 20 minutes or so, and then they have to be given some rest before they can continue. So they having him doing two shifts simultaneously for how long? For hours? For just 10 minutes, or for hours? How long? That should not happen. That's a recipe for disaster. We should not have towers that are understaffed like that and people that are overworked with jobs that require a lot of intensity and intense focus. That should not be happening. And then finally, I think on the air traffic control, they should not make assumptions about what other pilots have in front of them and what other pilots know about situational. They should be very careful about assuming too much. And these pilots of the Blackhawk should be trained to answer honestly. If they don't have traffic in sight, not to say, yeah, I have it in sight, but to say, I do not have it in sight. Give me more information. Where is this plane with respect to where I am? Is it off my left? Is it on my right? Is it starboard port? Is it 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 12 o'clock? Where is it? How high is it with respect to where I am? The situational awareness of these pilots were not what it was supposed to be due to lack of training, visual impairment if they had the night vision goggles on, and just the pollution and the cluttering of lights and traffic in that airspace. That should not be the case. Their situational awareness should be perfect. They should be very well trained and planned beforehand about flying in that airspace. And then finally, a recommendation is therefore better training of both the air traffic controllers, but especially the Blackhawks, to plan better and to respond to air traffic control honestly and more precisely. And finally, it's my understanding that these planes do not have traffic navigation, GPS navigation systems with traffic on board in the cockpit. If that is the case, then that is really unnecessary, because we now have ADS-B out on every plane that flies in controlled airspace. It's illegal to fly in controlled airspace without ADS-B out on every airplane. And ADS-B out replaced the old analog transponder systems. And now you have a digital signal that leaves every airplane that is transmitted to towers on the ground. And that information is relayed to every airplane. So you now could have on an iPad with ForeFlight and a WAAS GPS like a Stratus in your cockpit as a small airplane or a pilot, with you in the cockpit a display that shows you the map, the airport, all the landmarks, everything, aviation maps with traffic. So you see the moving blips on your screen, on your phone or on your iPad or on a dedicated instrument in your panel. Why don't they have it? They clearly didn't have it, because if they did, they wouldn't have flown into the jet. If they were paying attention to a map, a GPS navigation system that had ADS-B traffic on it, they would not have flown into this blip. They would not have just simply, motored right through the approach path of an oncoming landing airplane. The altitude deviation of this airplane takes secondary importance. They should have been horizontally separated from landing aircraft before they can proceed on that route. The air traffic controller should have been much firmer. He should not have said, "Do you have the CRJ in sight?" at that point. He should have said, "Pat 25, hold position. Aircraft landing right in front of you. Hold position until they've passed." But pass behind the CRJ while it's a legitimate call out. If this is an inexperienced pilot, they were confused. They did not know. How do I pass behind a light? What? I'm in a corridor. I cannot go left or right or up or down. This air traffic controller, maybe that's what they went through their head. The air traffic controller doesn't know what he's doing. He was knowing what he's doing. He was giving you an instruction that is just a condensed version of a lot of information, saying, hey, you cannot proceed any further. There's an CRJ landing right in front of you. You are about to cross into that airspace. You do not. You have to wait, let them pass first. And I think that it was too much information in such a way that this pilot didn't understand it. That's my perception. That's my opinion. Prove me wrong. So yeah, training, flight planning, better instructions, less assumption, technology in the cockpit. All those things would make this a much safer condition in the future. I want to address now just some of the conspiracy theories that I've heard. One of the conspiracy theories is that the crew of this plane or the pilot deliberately flew into the jet. I want to dispel that immediately, and I know that's very, esteemed people have said that. I don't believe that for a second. I don't believe, because it's a very difficult thing to do, to fly into a jet that's flying at 120 miles an hour or 150. And so I think the flight recorder would prove that's definitely not the case. Nobody was trying to fly into a jet. Forget that idea. I give it 0% chance of that happening. The other conspiracy theory is that this plane, this aircraft, the helicopter, and this is an Apache, I'm sorry, I don't have a Blackhawk model, but this is an Apache. It served great for this video. But the other conspiracy is that this was flown like a drone, either remotely or autonomously. So remotely, somebody on the ground, have controls of this aircraft, and they are using cameras and, equipment and computers to fly this thing without a crew. Autonomously would mean that this thing has a brain on board, and it can fly itself, like a Tesla can drive itself to a place without anybody controlling it. This technology exists. Both. You can both fly a Blackhawk as a remote control helicopter, or you can fly it, let an artificial intelligence brain fly this thing autonomously. In fact, the technology is now so sophisticated that the onboard artificial intelligence can answer and respond to air traffic control sounding like a human, and interpret the instructions from air traffic control and perform those instructions or comply with those instructions as if it's a human pilot. That technology also exists now. And the Air Force definitely has this ability, the military. They definitely have this ability to fly these Blackhawks remotely and autonomously. This is not just theory. It's there. They do it. So but while this is plausible because the technology exists, doesn't say that's what happened that night. Okay, it's plausible. I don't think that's exactly what happened. I think the likelihood of that is very low. I think I would give it 10% likelihood that that's what happened. I think there was a crew on board. I think these people unfortunately lost their lives. I think that it's human error and lack of planning, lack of situational awareness, lack of training that led to this accident. Mostly the responsibility, mostly because of these pilots in here, not experienced, not trained, not prepared enough for the flight. They asked twice for visual separation. Twice, not just once, twice. Twice did they say that they acknowledge having the CRJ in sight, and twice I'd question that they did. Both times, I think that request for visual separation was illegitimate. It was not a valid acknowledgement. I think they did not have anything in sight. And whether they had another plane in sight is also questionable. It may just be that they didn't even bother to look for a plane. They just, we're our military. We don't have to. We're not civilians. We're just checking the boxes here when we're flying. And unfortunately, people died. I don't know. I'm not sure. Saying this is 100%. I don't know, but that's my perception of this flight and what can be done to improve this and make aviation safer. Now, if you are wondering if aviation is safe, it's very, very safe. The likelihood of a car accident on the way to the airport is about 1,000 times better than the likelihood of being involved in an accident in the air if you're flying commercially. The likelihood, the probability of being involved in a commercial accident is like 1 in more than 1,000,000, and the likelihood of being in a car accident is like, less than 100, right? So flying is still much, much safer. And with technology, with like this ADS-B traffic on board, this gives pilots much more information and situational awareness. And so that improved that as well. Now, of course, there are things that, again, detracts from safety, and like untrained mechanics, people that are not fully trained and they do maintenance on aircraft, or people in the towers, or the pilots that are not fully qualified. Of course, that is unacceptable, and we should not tolerate any of that. But overall, flying is still very safe. So that's my 2 cents about this, and thanks for watching, and see you next time.